Today, we're diving into a really fascinating psychological paradox. How can an act that's consensual and often incredibly pleasurable also bring on such a profound sense of guilt?
So let's get right to the heart of it. We're talking about a situation where the wife is a totally willing participant. The husband has given his enthusiastic consent. It's all out in the open. So why does this powerful, nagging guilt so often show up to the party? Where is it even coming from?
Well, psychologists actually have a name for this internal battle. They call it the guilt paradox. And it's basically this fundamental clash between two different parts of ourselves. On one side, you have our conscious, modern choices, and on the other, you have our deepest, almost primal programming.
So, our goal here is to really peel back the layers of this paradox. We're going to look at everything from the societal rules we all grow up with, to our ancient evolutionary wiring, and even the immediate in-the-moment relationship dynamics, to figure out where this intense emotion is born. Okay, let's dive in. First things first, let's get a really clear definition of this core conflict we're exploring. Now, the key word here is coexisting. This is so important. It's not like the pleasure happens and then later the guilt kicks in. For a lot of people, these two powerful, completely opposite emotions are happening at the same time. And that's exactly what makes the experience so unbelievably intense. And, this paradox often seems to hit hardest for women in their 30s to 50s. So why this group in particular? Well, it's often because they were raised soaking in a very specific and, let's be honest, often contradictory set of cultural messages about what female sexuality is supposed to look like. So let's start with that first layer, society's internalized scripts. And the crucial thing to get here is that a lot of this guilt doesn't actually come from you. It's planted there from the outside world. It's all those voices and rules we absorb from the day we're born. For so many women, there's this deeply ingrained good girl script running in the background. You know the one. It's that little voice that whispers that female desire is already a little bit shameful and that desiring more than one partner, well, that's a straight-up moral failing, no matter what the circumstances are. And then you pile on top of that the good wife narrative. This is the script that frames a woman's sexuality as something that belongs exclusively to her husband, like property. And violating that, even with his full permission, can feel like you're betraying a truly sacred role. And this all feeds directly into what psychologists call the Madonna-Whore complex. It's this idea that women are conditioned to feel they can be one or the other, the pure, respectable wife and mother, or a sexual, desirable being, but never both at the same time. This dynamic forces those two identities to just crash into each other, and the result is this profound confusion and, you guessed it, guilt. Okay, so we've covered society. Now let's go even deeper. We're getting into our primal alarm bells. We're moving beyond social scripts and right into our evolutionary wiring. Because the truth is, our very modern choices are often being processed by a very, very ancient brain. Think of it like an old school security system that's hardwired into you. A new, unfamiliar partner comes into the picture, and it triggers this little danger signal in the oldest parts of your brain. That raw signal of risk then gets translated by your conscious mind into an emotion that we can recognize: guilt. And you have to remember, this system was designed to protect our ancestors from some very real life or death situations. Losing their partner, being cast out from the group, not having enough resources, these were huge survival risks. The practical dangers might be gone for us today, but that emotional architecture, it's still there, still sounding the alarm that we experience as guilt. All right, so we've gone from society to our ancient brain. Now let's bring it right back to the present moment, into the relationship itself, because the immediate dynamics create their own powerful and very tricky minefield of guilt. And one of the biggest and most painful sources of guilt is what's called the pleasure disparity. The sheer novelty, the taboo nature of the encounter, it can all lead to a much more intense physical response. But for the wife, experiencing that peak pleasure with someone else can feel like the ultimate betrayal, even when that's kind of the whole point of the fantasy. This leads to this just impossible emotional balancing act. She's constantly trying to manage everyone's feelings, her own, her husband's, the other man's. She feels this pressure to be enthusiastic for the fantasy, but at the same time, she's worried that her genuine enthusiasm is going to hurt her husband. It's a total catch-22. And all of this creates something known as the comparison trap. It really is a trap, because the guilt comes at you from every single direction.
She worries about being judged by her husband, then feels guilty for making her own mental comparisons, and then on top of it all, she feels anxious that if she performs too well, it might threaten his ego. It's a complete mess. So, you've got this storm of social programming, primal fear, and relationship anxiety. What in the world do you do with all of that? Well, that brings us to our final section, decoding the guilt. The key, according to therapists, is to completely change how you think about what guilt even is. Instead of seeing guilt as this big red moral stop sign that's yelling, "You did something wrong," it's way more helpful to see it as a piece of data. That's it. Guilt is just information. And the question then becomes, what is this information trying to tell me? And there's a really powerful tool for this called cognitive reframing. It's basically a 3-step process. First, just acknowledge the feeling is there, no judgment. Second, you play detective. You ask, okay, where is this coming from? Is this an old social script? Is it one of those primal alarm bells, or is this about a real-time issue in my relationship? And then third, you check that feeling against your actual consciously chosen values, not the ones society handed you. So, if you take away one thing from all this, let it be this. This guilt isn't just one feeling, it's a complex tapestry. It's woven together from the threads of your upbringing, your deep evolutionary biology, and the here and now of your relationship. And just understanding where each thread comes from, that's the first and most powerful step you can take toward managing it. Which leaves us with this final, really powerful thought to chew on. Is this guilt really a signal that you've done something wrong? Or is it just the sound of your mind breaking free from old programming? Because sometimes that feeling isn't a moral failure. It's the sound of friction you create when you courageously defy a lifetime of deep-seated conditioning. It might not be a sign of being wrong, but a sign that you're becoming free.